Tonight's episode opens with a sentence that doesn't belong in an ordinary news cycle. The Pentagon is wargaming Nigeria, not a beach landing fantasy, not a flyover for the cameras. Real contingency planning, because political thunder in Washington roared across the Atlantic and hit Abuja square in the face. A president threatened to cut aid, go in guns a-blazing, and wipe out the jihadis butchering civilians. Nigeria's reply was almost bored in its professionalism. If you're serious about fighting terrorists, we'll talk, on terms that respect our sovereignty. That's the moment the headline stopped being clickbait and turned into the kind of slow, complicated story that actually shapes lives on the ground. Here's why this matters. Nigeria is not a tidy chessboard. It's a country of more than 220 million people, split almost evenly between Christians and Muslims, spread from coastal megacities to Savannah and Sahel, stitched together by trade routes, family ties, and sometimes fragile trust. Into that fabric, more than a decade of insurgency tore jagged holes. First Boko Haram, then its nastier, more disciplined Islamic State-aligned offshoots. These groups massacre civilians, kidnap students, tax fear at gunpoint, and learn from every mistake we make hunting them. If you show up with a loud slogan and a short attention span, they'll sell you a victory parade and hand you a defeat.
Let's rewind the tape. Boko Haram didn't begin as a military juggernaut. It began as a movement that turned into a rebellion, then a terror army, then an international franchise. After 2009, its attacks spread across the northeast, Yobe, Borno, Adamawa. Brutal ambushes and suicide bombs designed less to win territory than to make governance look impossible. When the group split, the Islamic State West Africa province put on a colder, more strategic face. Fewer chaotic slaughters, more pressure on outposts and convoys, more attention to propaganda and pseudo-governance. That evolution is the essential key. This is not just violence. It's an attempt to make the state seem absent and irrelevant. The Nigerian state never accepted that script. It bled to resist it. Army divisions cycled into the northeast. Special units rotated through the forests and islands around Lake Chad. The Air Force flew strike missions, sometimes with antiquated platforms, sometimes, more recently, with precision from newer aircraft. Police, civil guards, and local militias fought and died too, with uneven discipline but stubborn courage. The results were mixed. Villages cleared and then recontested. Commanders killed but replaced. Civilians rescued even as new ones were taken. Counterinsurgency is a long, ugly ledger where you count gains in inches and failures in funerals.
So when Washington's rhetoric vaulted from zero to "we might go in ourselves," planners did what planners do. They opened up the good binder, the bad binder, and the one you only touch if the National Security Council meeting runs long. A real deployment scenario to Nigeria isn't a tank column, it's a network. Intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance assets map the enemy in motion. Joint targeting cells fuse human reports with signals and imagery. Special operations advisors help partner units tighten the kill chain, find, fix, finish, exploit, analyze. Air power sits at altitude waiting for a picture crisp enough to justify a strike, or stands down when that picture blurs with civilians. That's the craft. The politics sit on top of it like a sandbag. Here's the mood music Nigeria added: sovereignty. Abuja didn't blink at the words, "help us fight terrorists." It circled, "respect our sovereignty," in red ink. That's not prickly nationalism. It's how you avoid turning a counterterrorism partnership into an occupation narrative. It's also how you maintain legitimacy with your own citizens, Christians and Muslims, who have buried neighbors from every community. If foreign help looks like foreign rule, insurgent recruiters don't need to be good. They just need to show up.
Take a breath here and clear one persistent fog bank. The primary villains are not the Nigerian state and not a single religious community. The chief perpetrators of mass murder are jihadist groups, often linked to ISIS branding, who have proven happy to kill anyone they label an enemy. Yes, Christians have been targeted and massacred. So have Muslims, often in larger numbers in the majority Muslim north, because that's where the fights are hottest.
That's not spin, that's demography smashing a lazy narrative. If you design a mission around a simplified tale of one side good, one side doomed, you will misallocate assets and walk into every baited trap laid for you. What does a responsible US playbook look like? Start with the lightest footprint and the heaviest intelligence. That means drones and manned IASR, stacking orbits over hot zones, persistent signals collection that watches leadership chatter for patterns, and analysts who actually know the difference between a family dispute and a pre-attack rehearsal. Feed that into fused cells that include Nigerian officers with local instincts and US specialists who've built these puzzle boards in Iraq, Syria, Somalia, and the Philippines. When partner forces move, they do it with better maps and better medevac plans. When they strike, it's because the target is real, not because a politician needed a soundbite. The next rung is advisors, with authorities to accompany Nigerian units to the last covered and concealed position. That's military speak for close, but not the one kicking the door. Advisors don't need to take the shot to shape the fight. They need to help local commanders time their actions, avoid the obvious ambushes, and exploit the seconds after contact when an insurgent cell decides whether to scatter or stand. This kind of accompaniment is where campaigns get won quietly, or lost just as quietly. Because the quality of the small decisions is everything. Bring fuel bladders on time, watch the weather, count the batteries for your radios, and suddenly your partners are the ones who get to choose when and where to shoot. The third rung is the one that excites cable news but terrifies lawyers. Limited direct action by US assets. That's a high bar, and should be. You cross it only when the target is consequential, the picture is clean, the airspace is deconflicted, and the local government wants the hit. If you can't check those boxes, you don't take the shot. It's remarkable how often restraint looks like weakness to people who've never had to write a condolence letter. Let's talk platforms, because steel matters when flesh is on the line. Nigeria's inventory is a patchwork of legacy Soviet-era hardware, Western aircraft, and newer acquisitions. The A-29 Super Tucano fleet brought precision to close air support with a smaller footprint and a friendlier logistics tail than fast jets. Attack helicopters matter for terrain like Sambisa Forest and the river islands of Lake Chad, where fleeing fighters try to disappear under canopy or into reed beds. On the ground, elite battalions are only as lethal as their logistics make them. Mountain of ammo? Great. Can you keep the trucks fueled, the mortars plotted, the Kazovac ready, and the radios linked to reliable generators when the Harmattan dust chokes the air? That's where outside partners can turn brave units into durable ones. Geography is a co-conspirator here. Northeast Nigeria bleeds into Niger, Chad, and Cameroon, a set of borders with more footpaths than checkpoints. If you don't pre-negotiate cross-border permissions with neighbors, your best day in Borno can become your worst day on Lake Chad, when the target skips across an invisible line. Regionally, joint task forces have existed, sometimes more on the map than in reality. Reanimating those frameworks matters if you want to deny safe havens without turning every hot pursuit into a diplomatic scandal. And yes, that requires patient work with foreign ministries and defense chiefs who've heard a lot of promises and seen a lot of contractors come and go. Now, the hard civilian bit. Insurgents live inside human terrain. They buy food from the same market stalls as the people they threaten. They bully parents into giving up sons and daughters for the cause. They promise protection with the same mouths they use to threaten arson. If your operation destroys a food store or misidentifies a gathering, the damage isn't just moral, it's strategic. You can erase 6 months of careful outreach in 6 minutes. That's why the phrase precision strike is only worth saying if you've invested in precision intelligence and precision aftermath, meaning vetted compensation, public explanation, and a visible plan to make security feel like security, not punishment. Politics at home are an accelerant and a corrosive all at once. Some American voices want to cast this as a crusade to defend Christians. Others want to dismiss every deployment as neo-colonial meddling. Both frames make for spicy panel shows and bad policy. The accurate frame is brutally simple. Jointly target ISIS-aligned insurgents who murder civilians.
strengthen Nigeria's capacity to govern and protect, and leave with the relationship stronger than you found it. If you accomplish that, the extremists lose space, the black market taxman loses revenue, and kids walk to school without rehearsing escape routes. That's what victory looks like here. It's not a parade, it's a morning routine. And yes, there is great power static in the background. The Sahel and its neighbours have become a tug-of-war over security influence. As juntas have taken power in some countries, Western forces have been pushed out, and Russian private military ecosystems have moved in, sometimes rebranded, sometimes not. Nigeria isn't a junta state. It's a messy, proud democracy with leverage and options. If Washington shows up with respect, quiet competence, and honest timelines, it argues, without lecturing, that there's an alternative to mercenary contracts and press conference blitzes. If Washington shows up with swagger and shortcuts, it writes the ad copy for its competitors. What about the money and the laws? Aid isn't just a carrot, it's connective tissue. Training pipelines, maintenance contracts, scholarships for staff colleges, intelligence sharing agreements. Threatening to cut it all makes noise. Selectively tuning it makes outcomes. On the legal side, any deployment has to thread multiple needles. Domestic statutes that limit support when partner forces are accused of abuses, host nation laws about basing and overflight, and the international law that governs force in a sovereign state. That's the boring part that keeps you from accidentally making new enemies. Let's ground this in the lived reality of a single operation. Imagine a tip arrives at dawn. A mid-level ISWAP commander is meeting 3 lieutenants near a river landing where they move fuel drums and stolen grain. A small Nigerian unit is already nearby, but they're outnumbered if the meeting breaks up into multiple boats. ISR shifts a drone to stare at the landing, while a manned platform checks for heat signatures in the patch of forest behind it. Signals intercept confirms familiar call signs. An advisor quietly urges patience. Don't strike the first truck. Watch for the second boat. When both targets stack, the ground unit maneuvers to block the only viable exit, and air delivers a single timed effect. Enough to shock, not enough to set the world on fire. The unit clears, collects, and gets out before the enemy's cousins arrive. No headline, no victory lap. But the network shudders. A week later, a bomb maker texts the wrong cousin, and the puzzle clicks again. That's how campaigns actually move. Meanwhile, civilians need more than words. Displaced families return home only when returning doesn't feel like an act of madness. That means demining, rebuilding clinics, retraining police, restoring markets, and insisting that soldiers and militias alike keep their hands off informal taxes. The best message you can send an insurgent isn't a threat. It's a photo of a reopened school where the teacher is from the next village over, and the only men with guns are wearing uniforms and taking orders from someone accountable. Governance is the unsexy bayonet on the end of security's rifle. It's what turns cleared ground into a community again. Now, let's address the elephant riding the drone: timing. Politicians love fast. Counterinsurgency loves thoroughness. One promises fast, vicious and sweet. The other promises slow, careful, and it might work. The challenge is selling the second in a world addicted to the first. That's leadership. It's telling the truth about how long it takes to build an intelligence picture that saves lives, not just ends them. It's putting your name on a plan that won't deliver a sugar high in a month, but will deliver fewer funerals in a year. For the record, vicious and sweet is also how a 3-shot espresso tastes, not a great theory of victory. No, there will not be a Hollywood montage where satellite imagery zooms in and a red dot appears over the villain's lair while a guitar riff plays. Yes, someone will inevitably ask whether we can solve this with just cyber. And yes, the surest way to get lost in Nigeria is to start a sentence with, "All you need to do is." The insurgents have heard those phrases before. They keep them next to the generator in case they run out of fuel. Back to brass tacks. A smart US-Nigeria campaign sets milestones that matter. Reduction in civilian casualty incidents,
interdiction rates on fuel and ammo smuggling, defections and surrenders from mid-level fighters, operations conducted with cross-border deconfliction already in the book, communities held for 6 months without a major incident. Those aren't sexy metrics, but they're the ones that bend the curve. When you can't point to any of that, don't believe anyone who points to a burnt-out pickup and calls it victory. Will there be friction? Of course. Some commanders will resent advisors. Some advisors will assume they are the smartest person in the room. The weather will cancel sorties. Radios will die. A mayor will ask for help and then vote against the budget that funds it. A rumour will race through 3 villages faster than a helicopter can fly. None of that is a sign the mission is doomed. It's a sign that the mission is human. The real test is whether the coalition learns faster than the enemy adapts. Let's talk end states, because kill the bad guys is not a strategy. The durable outcome is a Nigeria in which jihadist cells cannot mass, cannot tax, cannot recruit openly, and cannot pretend to govern. It's an army that can plan a multi-brigade operation without needing a foreigner to debug the logistics flow. It's the police who can be firm without being feared. It's a judiciary that can try captured militants without turning court days into security crises. And it's a political class honest enough to say, the state failed too many citizens in the northeast. We are doing the boring work to earn them back. What do we lose if we miss this? We cede narrative ground to extremists who promise order at gunpoint. We hand influence to outside actors who sell security as a subscription service and democracy as a liability. We teach partners that American words are fireworks, loud, pretty, and gone by morning. Or we can choose the harder thing, align our words with our tradecraft, and our tradecraft with a partner who asked for help and set a boundary. That choice won't trend on social media. It might let a market open on time. So here is the question that should end every meeting on this file. Will the plan you're approving today make it more likely, 6 months from now, that a mother in Borno can send her daughter to school without fear? If the honest answer is no, fix the plan or cancel the photo op. If the honest answer is yes, prepare to accept that the credit will be diffuse, the timeline longer than your term in office, and the victory measured in mornings so normal they're invisible. That's how real security wins. It hides inside ordinary life. Nigeria didn't ask for American bombast. It asked for a disciplined partnership against men who profit from chaos. The Pentagon is right to plan. Abuja is right to insist on sovereignty. The mission, if it comes, will be won or lost not in a headline, but in the quiet hours when analysts connect dots, when commanders hold fire because the picture isn't clean, when a patrol stops to talk instead of surging past, and when a politician chooses patience over applause. That's not fast, vicious, and sweet. It's slower, steadier, and real. And in a war like this, real is the only way you win.